Hello, good morning, and happy Friday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this week's new episode of Breakfast with Boom. I'm your host, Mr. BoomStick XL, and as you can see, we have a loaded panel today. Big names joining us here to talk about, well, bigger or even bigger topics. PlayStation has once again canceled 2 games. That was the big breaking news last night. We got some quotes from some of the bigs on the interwebs. We're going to break all of that down, but of course, we're going to open the show with a rebuttal or a response from Microsoft and Activision regarding the claims from hedge fund managers that the gaming media ran with the other day regarding Xbox Game Pass not making money, Xbox Game Pass nobody wants. What else did we hear? Activision not happy with the sales. Microsoft, potentially backtracking or thinking they made a mistake with Activision, the acquisition, which is of course horse shit. We will get into all of it. We have all of the documentation because I'm all about that evidence-based conversation. But before we get to the 2 topics, and this could be probably one of the bigger or more longer shows, than we've had so far, because obviously the panel is pretty stout. Let's start first with our special guest, Ham Solo from TSWS Gaming, my brother, who is now up the ante with his content where he's going live 5 days a week at 9 a.m. or 9:30 in the morning. And he just goes, folks. He talks about the biggest topics that happen to be, well, the conversation of the community. Brother, welcome back. Nice to have you here.
Yeah, bro. Check this out. I go live Monday through Friday, but I go live 8 times through that period.
Wow, that's a lot.
So Monday twice, Wednesday twice, and Friday twice.
Okay.
And then the 5 days, obviously, right? Or you do that addition. You can figure it out. But anyways, so I do a lot of content creating. I have a lot of fun over on my channel, TSWS Gaming. You can see it on the screen if I just get my face out the way. There it is right there.
There you go.
You can see it right there. But anyways, it stands for They Said, We Said. My show, 9:30 a.m. Eastern till whenever I feel like getting off. I just talk about various subjects. I talked a little bit about this that we're going to be talking about here shortly today, and I talked about it a little bit yesterday because that's kind of when some of it started to happen. But I was talking about it pre. Now we're talking about it after the fact of when Microsoft came back and said, "Shut your mouth." So I'm excited to sit here and talk to you about it with you guys. And then later in the evening, I got a show called Bullsitting on that same channel, TSWS Gaming, where me, Loke, my partner in crime, and Matt Likes Games, Cozy Beluga, and Mental 9R, we're going to have a whole panel and we're going to be talking about all this stuff. But I am gracious to be here this morning with Boom. As you can see, I'm wide awake. I used to show up to this podcast half groggy and ready to pass out. But your boy has, I had New Year's resolutions. I am up loud and live starting at 6 a.m. But I don't start my show until 8:30 my time, 9:30 for y'all out east. So thank you for inviting me to the show today, though, brother. I appreciate it.
It's our pleasure to have you here, brother. You're one of the community best. There's no doubt about it. Love the work that you're doing. Even when there's negativity, you still find a way to look at it from a positive view without going in on, piling on the rabbit, so to speak. And we do appreciate that about the work that you do, not only as a content creator, but more importantly, as a community leader. So thank you so much for being here.
Powerful words right there. Thank you.
I mean, it's earned, brother. It's earned, and I wouldn't say it if it wasn't true. Crispy Bomb, my brother from another. The Steelers are out. We need big changes, but your team may win a 3rd Super Bowl. I know you're excited for that. They've had some time to heal up. How are you feeling? And of course, we got some pretty big, powerful topics to get into, and one of which is a corporation going up, and the other one is a corporation on the decline for sure. How you feeling? Good morning.
I mean, is Sony dead, bro?
They have a pulse. I just don't know for how much longer.
I'm pointing out the stands narrative. Okay. Like, let's be honest here. All right.
I love it.
Like it's unnecessary. Okay. Like, yeah, you could throw the consoles out there, but clearly they're not making money. Go look at their stock price. I mean, come on, people.
$21, I think, a share.
I think GameStop still has a higher stock price right now, which they're closing stores, people. So how about you worry about what's going on in your own platform?
Yep.
And not worry about us so much. And that's going to be my point, the entire thing. Now, yes, I am going to throw shade, people. That is what I'm going to do. But it's called hypocrisy and contradicting yourself.
Yep.
Don't do that. And there's a few that are Sony fans that, because Boom doesn't partake in the console war. I partake subtly. But when I have receipts on you, you need to sit down and shut that up. And that's what I'm going to say about that. But we got some topics to get into, and including Microsoft coming out of nowhere and actually saying something for once.
Shocking.
That was weird. So let's get into it.
Yes, absolutely. For some reason, I saw when you said that, The Rock popped into my head when he says, "Shut your mouth." I love when he does that. That's great. It's great.
Yeah, know your role.
Know your role and shut your mouth. There you go. Korkenstein, my brother, who has one of the most unique and awesome podcasts that he does. Of course, it's Game Pass Gumbo, ladies and gentlemen. If you don't know what it is, well, God damn it, you should certainly find out, because they incorporate food with the Game Pass game of the conversation. It's incredibly cool. How you feeling, Cork? Welcome back.
Doing good. I thought it was going to be a very slow kind of news week leading up to the direct, but it's just been nonstop, just craziness right now, especially with these 2 live games being canceled. Sony's in a mess. It's insane. My mind's just blown. This should be the year of gaming, and it's last year was a great year with all the releases we got, and this year, should have been just insane. But it just seems to be like already the just nonstop just drama train of console warring.
Well, again, not to sound like I'm repeating, but this is a tale of 2 companies. One used to be the shit, so to speak, and the other one used to be the one that was the little brother or the little sister that kind of just dragged around with the teenagers. Like, oh my God, there goes little Johnny. I got to just make sure he's okay. Sorry, guys. Right? We all know about that. We all had the little brother or the sister. I'd be like, God damn it, man. Mom, can you do something about this? Well, that's Sony right now. Microsoft is big man on campus. Now, granted, they're not market leader, at least not yet, but you cannot sit back in your chair and be like, yeah, Sony, they're going to be all right. No, they're not. They're in the pickle. But Fuzzy Belvedere, what's going on, my brother, Mr. Slander? Now, listen, this looks like he reminds me of a proper Clark Kent. He's got the glasses on. He's just chilling. He's not very mild manners until he punches you in the face, which I think he's going to do today. Fuzzy Belvedere, what's up, brother?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm just wondering where all those articles are about PlayStation being dead or being a zombie.
Indeed.
What happened? Gaming media must have been asleep at the wheel. I mean, I guess they didn't realize that canceling, was it 7+ games out of the 12?
Oh, we have the list, and we're going to open up with that list, and the list is
we're checking it twice.
We're going to check it twice. We're going to do it live on the air, as they like to say, doing it live. But yes, Fuzzy, it's great to have you here. I actually cannot wait to get your hot take on things, because again, I know that we're going to be potentially a little slanderous. Shout out to the chat. We got almost 350 people here. I'm only 9 minutes in. We appreciate you taking the time on your busy Friday and in the morning to kind of hang out with us. This is going to be a very pointed conversation on both ends. Pause. And more importantly, we have documents, we have articles, and the opinions that we are going to levy during today's show are all factual. They're not made up. They're not trying to drive a narrative. What we're going to talk about is actually happening, ladies and gentlemen. So let's open up with the story that came the way of, once again, Insider Gaming. This was written by Mike Straw. It is an exclusive to Insider Gaming, which of course is Tom Henderson's website. The title reads, "Exclusive. Microsoft and Activision deny report regarding financial performance of Activision Blizzard King, as well as Xbox Game Pass." Now, I'm just going to read verbatim from the article, folks, so bear with me. It says, on Wednesday, a report from the website The Information claimed that Microsoft's purchase of Activision Blizzard hasn't resulted in the growth the company expected with its Xbox business at this point. The report quotes paywall. Now, mind you, I did not pay for this. I pulled it from the website. One analyst who is a portfolio manager named Danny Fish as saying Activision has been disappointing. Now, this is the key. He is a fund, a portfolio manager. He's a hedge manager. What he does is manage monies invested in Microsoft. He's not on the board. He does not have a phone call to Phil, to Satya, or to Amy Hood. He is a funds manager, which means that he is managing a bunch of invested money. According to him, Activision has been disappointing, not disappointed, meaning that he's not speaking for Activision or anybody on the board for Microsoft. And that is the story that was run by many people in this industry. And if you did run with it, we can see that the narrative was simply spoken to drive clicks with lies. Because again, there is a stark difference, ladies and gentlemen, between Activision being disappointed and Activision has been disappointing, meaning that they haven't made as much money as the hedge fund manager wanted. So what I decided to do, because I'm all about evidence-based conversation, is pull up the exact quotes from these hedge fund managers. And it goes on to say this: Activision has been disappointing, said Denny Fish, a Janice Henderson Investors portfolio manager who oversees two funds that included a total of more than $800 million in Microsoft stock as of November. And quote, "It's a business that had some degree of consistency over like a 3 to 5 year period, but was highly volatile from year to year because you're so dependent on the big releases like Call of Duty." Now, the other fund head, the hedge fund manager, goes on to say, and again, this comes the way of Gus Zinn, who is a portfolio manager at Macquarie Science and Technology Fund. "I just think the majority of the game market doesn't really want Game Pass like the one Microsoft is offering." Which is, and again, if you want to know how much money he holds in regards to the hedge fund that he is managing, well, it's roughly $400 million in Microsoft stock and has kept its Microsoft position roughly flat over the past year. So because of that, Ham Solo, these two hedge fund managers are interviewed by The Information, and the way the original story was written, as if we were hearing from board members, people that sit on the board at Microsoft that invested $75+ billion into Activision Blizzard King. And there were many people in the industry. And again, we don't do the names thing here because I don't like that kind of smoke and I don't need it to sell the brand. We're here to talk about facts. And the facts were just written and read to you live on the air. I want to get your take on how this was turned into Xbox Game Pass not being profitable, Xbox Game Pass being a service that the market doesn't want, Activision board members being disappointed with the sales, Microsoft board members being disappointed with the purchase of Activision. It is a very stark difference from hedge managers being disappointed and the fact that their funds have stayed flat, meaning they haven't had a lot of profitability, versus what we are being told by games media, and more importantly, the knucklehead community that represent PlayStation in the worst way possible? Let's get your thoughts.
All right. So Boom or panel, anybody answer me this question. What month is it?
It's January. It's the last time I checked.
Yeah, it's tax season.
Indeed.
There's all kinds of tax. And there's one special tax that we haven't talked about for a little bit.
Please, by all means.
And it's that Xbox tax. And they gotta pay the players every year, or else they get nothing. But it has, and see, the thing is Xbox always gives you the return, or the last few years they've given us the return, right? We got the return when we got Hi-Fi Rush, right? And see, here's another thing that happens every year, but people get very, very, very staunch tunnel vision, right? Every year before GDC, all these companies dispel dead weight, or what they call dead weight, before they have to go to investors, right? So what did Microsoft kind of try to do to remedy that issue that they have with, bad publicity during that time, seeing that they do it every year pretty much? They put a developer direct right there.
Yep.
Right? There's a purpose behind why they do stuff in certain times, right? A load of bad news is going to happen. You get it a week prior to the developer direct every year that I've noticed so far.
Like clockwork, sir.
Like clockwork. It happens repeatedly. A week prior to 2 weeks prior, there is a release of a bunch of people from Microsoft. But there's also a release from people from Sony, from all these third-party studios. There's probably some from Nintendo. We know that there's a ton within just the media industry in general. It's the beginning of the year. They're starting off fresh. They got new ideas that they're putting in place. CES just happened. So, they got a lot of new ideas and juices flowing. GDC's coming up. They got to look at them. They got to look at and make sure the numbers are right. So when they go to report it, things are looking as good as they possibly can for investors to be like, hell yeah, let's go. Let me invest a little bit further into this. Right? But we tend to always skip over what Sony did or what anybody else did. It's just bad Microsoft, right? And
are you saying Xbox bad, PlayStation good?
Essentially, we see it all the time, right? I thought it was hilarious. I think it was a year or two ago. I made a video talking about all this stuff, and oh no, it's Alex was like, these people talking about Xbox tax are goofy. Destin Legary called me out specifically, called me and Post Up out specifically on his podcast and said, there is no Xbox tax. You guys are just tripping. And we've slowly seen Destin look around like he's like, uh-oh, I'm feeling a little taxing out here. And then Alex just a couple days ago had a show where he's like, well, I think I'm starting to kind of believe this Xbox tax thing now. So I'm just like, hey, we've been here. We've been here telling you all this. And even you guys that have so many more followers and so many more people that give you guys all this inside information, y'all didn't see it for yourselves. Just this guy that sits at home in the middle of Iowa could see it from a mile away. Just like, goodness gracious, y'all pander real heavy-handedly for these other platforms, even when they fail. Concord is forgotten about already. But we had to feel Redfall all the way up until Activision was sold.
Yes. Yep.
So I'm just trying to say, there is a double standard. To hell with whatever somebody else tells you. When you feel the double standard and you see the double standard, there's a double standard. Doesn't matter if somebody wants to be ignorant or not.
So
That's
basically what you're saying, if it looks like a fart, sounds like a fart, and smells like a fart, it's probably a fart. So listen, just admit it. You did it. That's it. End of story. Maybe it's a bad analogy, but it is what it is. And I like the way you put it down. It is, again, it's very evident that there is something afoot here. And again, I know that for a lot of people, there's going to be people in the chat like, oh, you guys, with your Xbox tax. Folks, I don't know how to make it any more clear. We are being very forward thinking. I think we're being pretty transparent about why we believe that it exists. And I think it's documented well enough. Crispy Bomb, I want to bring you in on the conversation. So this, apparent or so-called Xbox tax, right? Now, I don't think it's been ever this apparent than what's going on with Sony. Because again, if you look back to how many articles that were written just based on the fact that a website called The Information quoted hedge fund managers, that part was left out on many of the articles. A lot of the articles were driven towards it. These opinions were coming from Microsoft board members. And I think it got so bad that Microsoft, who normally doesn't say a peep, literally responded with quotes. So let me get over to that. Now, I just want to give, I'm all about context, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm going to read again from the article that Mike Straw wrote. And it goes on to say this: breaking the numbers down, Activision has accounted for over 85% of each quarter's revenue increase. It also shows that over the last 3 quarters, a slight, steady growth outside of Activision's impact from a low of 1 point to 8 points as of Q1 FY 2025. Basically, what they are saying is that even without the Activision monies, Xbox has consistently shown growth. It has not regressed in any way. But here is a quote from Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella, who alluded to the purchase's benefit during the company's Q1 2025 earnings call last October about the acquisition and gaming's growth as a whole. This is, I quote, "We set new records for monthly active users in the quarter as more players than ever play our games across devices and on the Xbox platform." He said this while he was saying that the business is positioned for long-term growth. This is the CEO of Microsoft. And we also, I don't have her quote in front of me, but right after Satya Nadella's quote, Amy Hood, who is the CFO, made a monstrous statement. I will try to find it, but you have to understand, folks, there are no lies here, because the stock market and the stock pricing and the buying and selling of that stock go based on this leader's words. So if he were to, say something false, they would be in big trouble. So obviously the numbers don't lie. It is amazing to me that so many of the gaming press ran with this Xbox is dead, Game Pass isn't making money, and Activision was a miss. It is shocking to me. What are your thoughts?
Well, it boggles my mind, because I feel like people don't publicly trading at this point is so easy to do. I mean, I think many of us, in this chat, on the panel, have traded something because it's so much easier than it used to be. And
you can do it on your phone, for crying out loud.
Yeah, and it's actually crazy, because you could just look at the market cap, and we'll just start there. $3.19 trillion, Microsoft. Okay, that's their market cap. Okay, what is Sony? Oh my God. Oh man, 126.99 billion. And trust me, people have said, "Oh, they separated their stocks." I can't find any other Sony corp but Sony themselves, so I don't know what you're talking about. So the hedge fund managers. Okay, if they're mad, fine, because they have more market cap than Sony themselves. But why are you calling them out? Microsoft's making you money. They're trading at over $400 right now. $400 per share, people. Like, stop with the narrative. Xbox ain't dying anytime soon. If anything, they're going the Netflix approach, because Netflix was founded in 1997, people. Okay? And they just became profitable, last year, which somebody called me out on that, and they were correct. Last year, they became profitable. 1997.
For the first time?
Come on, people. Like, and I'm going to tell you right now, all these stands love to act like they're financial advisors and the greatest thing in the world. But and engineers, and you know who I'm talking about, and y'all going to sit there and act like you're on the right side of what is happening. Because guess what? We can't hate Microsoft because we play on Game Pass, people. And we got games. How about that? We got games coming while you're canceling studios. Honestly, if God of War came out, great. That's cool. Let's see what happens in the live service aspect. No, cancel that. What are we doing here? Okay. Like, I hate people that call out their own hypocritical stuff, but I love that Sony trashes them like within 24 hours all the time. It's actually incredible. So I look at it and I say, stop talking about Microsoft so much. Like, seriously, like, they're not worried. Trust me. Like, they're beholden to their shareholders. As I told Paul, sorry, Paul Tassi, it is what it is. Like, it's unethical, and it's also like probably going to break some laws if you go and tell your shareholders everything's great after having such a supposed legitimate article, which they corrected, by the way. Just think about that. Okay. So stop looking at the clickbait. Start looking at the tea leaves that can read you something. And it might be a storybook of the problems that Microsoft has, as they have too many people right now. They probably do. And it sucks to hear like layoffs and all that stuff, but you're talking absorbing a huge, like the largest purchase they've ever done. Okay. Like, yes, they could have, they could have purchased many other companies and they didn't do it. They purchased Activision Blizzard. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you look at the charts for game sales last year, Call of Duty's in like the top 5 and everything.
Yep.
So, except where it can't release, which is fine, which I think the Switch 2 might hopefully fill that void, and they're going to make money there.
That's probably going to be a launch title for that.
See
for that
layoffs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Would we rather see layoffs, or would we rather see them say, hey, certain games are going to go everywhere? And that's the way it is. And I'm okay with that, especially if you like, we hear all the rumors like Gears of War Ultimate Edition going to the PlayStation. Fine. I got no problem with that. I don't. I play that game over and over again. Multiplayer, single player, whatever it was. Like, there's so many multiplayer modes in that game. Like, these guys are starving for multiplayer, for the love of God. I mean, you got IPs like SOCOM sitting there, like, why not bring it back out? You want a gas game? There you go. But that's my point.
We're gonna get into that because, again, I don't think that you're going to see a more stark picture of two companies going in opposite directions. And again, I know we're going to get into it in the second half. PlayStation has set themselves back 3 to 5 years with all these cancellations. And if you don't believe me, We're going to break that down. But Fuzzy,
multiple. Well, okay, going back on PlayStation, multiple years. You understand? Like that costs money, people.
Millions.
And we're not talking like, hey, like PlayStation's going away, because we're not like that. Sorry.
Right.
Sorry, stands. We're not like that. Okay. Instead, we're saying you need to pivot, and you need to pivot well.
Yep.
And you know what? Maybe, saying remasters should be bought on the PC, people, because they need to release games on other platforms. Doesn't mean that Microsoft was wrong for doing it years ago. That's the point. We're not saying that it's a bad thing. We're saying it's a good thing. And they need to realize we want PlayStation around. You don't get it. We are gamers, people. We want PlayStation around because we need checks and balances in the gaming community. And we need somebody to do something a little different, but also, hey, time to, follow the lead. And that's what Microsoft's just ahead. That's it. But that doesn't mean that they're, completely not going to do something wrong, because we've seen it so many freaking times. So instead of being a stan or being the gamer, those are two different things. And I think everybody on this panel, and I think most of the people in this chat, are just straight up gamers and want to see games come out. And we got games, people.
Competition for the dollar breeds
competition.
Innovation.
It's right. Innovation, indeed, 1,000%. And again, this is, the reason why Microsoft is where they're at is because they got curb stomped, ladies and gentlemen. They got their asses handed to them on a platter, coming off of the Xbox 360, which was a triumphant return to what we all love about gaming, right? They had exclusives, they had exclusive content, they were the cool system, they had Call of Duty, they had it going on. People wanted to put their games and play on the Xbox 360. Now, granted, console sales did come into question, and the PlayStation, the PS3, even though it started out pretty bad, eventually overtook them. But that's because they sold those consoles for 3 to 5 years more than the 360 did. Mind you, got to remember the 360 had the red ring of death. It should have been over for Xbox, and it wasn't. But I do want to move on, continue this conversation. Fuzzy Belvedere, let's go to you, and then we'll bring in Korkenstein on the back end. This is one of those conversations that I find to be hilarious, because there were narratives. There were quite a bit of articles written by some pretty prominent members of the journalistic community. And I do use the word journalist loosely, because when you have certain journalists quote tweeting trolls, I think we got problems. And I think that ultimately shows how childish said journalist is. You don't quote trolls. That, I think, is a bad look, and really does show that you are immature and that you are lowering yourself to a troll level community that just wants to see the world burn. And that is embarrassing. And you should, in fact, be ashamed. But I digress. Let's talk about it. Again, these are hedge fund managers who are disappointed because they weren't making 40%. Rather, they're making 12%. And somehow or another, their disappointment was laser focused and transferred over to Activision and Microsoft being disappointed. I just read a couple of quotes from these hedge managers. Very easy to understand, but I understand why they shifted, because, well, there is an Xbox tax. It does exist, and this is another perfect example. Let's get your hot take.
Well, I'll start off with the investment aspect. I'm not the biggest investor out there. As you guys know, I'm retired. And one of the things I did was in 2014, I invested in everything that was in my house, as far as if I bought a particular appliance, electronic, the car brand that was in the driveway, I bought shares. Like, I think it was Loyal3 made it easy to do that, and other apps made it easy to do that. Now I have a Charles Schwab account and moved everything over there. But in 2014, when I bought a good bit of Sony stock and Microsoft stock, Microsoft was only $75 a share.
Yep.
Each one of those shares is now $420 some dollars.
Yeah.
The share I bought of Sony was $50. Now it split not too long ago. So for each share, you got 5. But if you add those up, it only doubled in value. So $50 turned into $100. It's basically 5 shares of 20. So who's hurting? Definitely not Microsoft at that point. Maybe those, hedge fund managers only really invested in Microsoft within the past couple of years. Like I said, I did 10 years ago. It definitely paid off. And Tesla was another one that paid off, but that's a whole nother story. But all of that aside, the Xbox tax, we've talked about it. Numerous people in the community have talked about it. Shout out to 3-Bit. He pointed out one of the key things, and from a developer standpoint, one of the things or insights that he alerted us to was that a lot of these journalists go to companies only asking for the PlayStation version of the game because that's their preferred console. Either they grew up on PlayStation or that's their preferred platform. So obviously, if your preferred platform is a certain brand, you're going to always see that in a better light. Now, you could be critical of it, but knowing that they blacklist you at that point means that you're probably going to bite your tongue a good bit. As opposed to Xbox, they're never going to blacklist people unless you just about set the console on fire on social media or something like that. But even then, I think they would still send you a review copy just to get reviews out there. But in the grand scheme of things, you would think between journalists who always claim that they're above this fanboyism or have this integrity about them would stray away from quoting trolls or fanboys within the community. But it never ceases to amaze me that they want to deny the Xbox tax exists, but then the same people that want to deny it as well on the fanboy side, they'll quote them as examples as opposed to just saying, well, let's take Hi-Fi Rush, for example. There were a couple of review sites that said Hi-Fi Rush just didn't jive with them. Maybe it was the music or the rhythm or whatever. Maybe they don't have rhythm. I don't know. Whatever the case may be is once it came to PlayStation, all of a sudden everything clicked. Now, of course, they could say it was the DualSense controller, but anybody that has a PS5 and has a DualSense controller versus like an Xbox Elite controller, there's not really much more going on, except for if you're playing Astrobot. Astrobot's about the only real thing that displays what the DualSense is capable of. All other games pale in comparison. It's just basic rumble stuff. Yeah, it might be in certain areas of the controller as opposed to just at the base of it, but it's not game changing enough to be like, oh, well, when it was on Xbox or PC, this game was a 7, but now it's a 10 because of DualSense and it's on my PlayStation. Really? There was no more fixes. I mean, about the only real fix was maybe the shadows were slightly better because remember that was a thing. Much like GTA with the extra blades of grass.
It's like giving a game a 10 because this one on Xbox has quick resume though. Like stop.
Great point.
But that's the thing. But there were people out there trying to downplay quick resume. Shout out to was it Old School Fools or whatever that new guy that was a PlayStation cat that his wife picked him up. Xbox Series X.
I believe his name is Elliot.
Yeah, that's a perfect example. Like that was somebody that was blinded by this Xbox tax in the media as well as just fanboyism as far as not knowing what the other side had until he actually has hands on. And to have like Reforged talk about, oh, well, quick resume is no different than, putting it in rest mode. It's like, how can you even bring yourself to say something that stupid, knowing that people are going to check you? But I guess your audience is either that stupid or they don't choose to even bother gaming beyond the box that they have in front of them, which is, it sounds like his audience is just PlayStation only cats for the most part. But I guarantee you when Windows 12 comes out and quick resume is actually on PC at that point through Windows, then there might be a little bit of a different change as far as, oh, well, quick resume really is a game changer. Then they'll be asking for it on PlayStation. But because it's only on Xbox, nobody needs that until they do or until they discover how great it is. But, these hedge fund managers are more concerned with money as opposed to health of the business. Many hedge fund managers will drain a company dry to focus on their profits as opposed to the lifespan of that company. Because If that company goes bankrupt, they don't care. They can just invest their money somewhere else the next day. So to take their word as if, oh, that's the only thing that was going on with Xbox, considering, okay, we're going to talk about at some point the whole, Satya thought about closing Xbox down in 2021. It's 2025 now. Obviously, that didn't happen.
Right.
Sure, it could have happened in Bizarro World or in another, alternate universe or something, but in the grand scheme of things, that's old news. It's irrelevant at this point. Xbox is flourishing. They have a roadmap. Sony, on the other hand, they have a movie roadmap. And that should have been all the information you knew before even getting to, Yoshida's comments or lack thereof of things like the PSVR 2 comments and stuff. You should have known when Sony doesn't bring anything to the table as far as for the PlayStation platform, other than showing a highlight reel of 30 years for, the CES show that was just happened. All they did was focus on taking those game IPs and getting other money. Since they can't seem to get the money from the gaming aspect, they're going to get the money from the movie or music aspect. Nobody had any real questions or insights on that. Like, where was the gaming media? Like, if Xbox did that, and we know when they did something similar in 2013 when it was all about TV, they were all up in arms about how dare a gaming company talk about anything other than gaming. But now it's great. The Last of Us series season 2 and an anime for my favorite game, even though I don't know if I'm happy about the sequel that's coming out. It's supposedly this year. Yeah, it's like...
Yo, Fuzzy, let me remind you of something real quick.
Yeah, what's up?
Remember, ever since the launch, we've been told how successful Horizon Forbidden West is, yet Yoshida comes out here just a couple of days ago and says, yeah, that shit was a bust.
Pretty much.
We've seen the arguments back and forth with the guy from Ben Studios. Is like, we actually reached the 10 million on our own without even doing a pack-in. They had to do Horizon Zero Dawn as a pack-in to get those numbers. So what are we even talking about? Like, if they had greenlit that game to have a sequel, it would have already come out at this point. Now you're 5 years down the road, still, twiddling your thumbs and wondering, well, when is Intergalactic going to come? Is it, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now? When is, The Last of Us 3 coming out? Or is it going to be, and I've seen people joke about this, will we get the reveal of Last of Us 3 as a TV series season as opposed to the game? It might drop before the game actually drops. Like, what are we even talking about? Like, if you're a PlayStation fan and you're not vocal about, hold them accountable and what's going on, then you're full of bull. It doesn't make any more sense to look over at our side as far as Xbox and say, oh, well, they should do this. And they need to port these games. And what's Sony doing? Like, obviously, if you're more concerned with Xbox porting games to your platform, that goes to show that Sony isn't taking care of you. You wouldn't even want to bother looking at Xbox games if you were being taken care of properly through Sony. But we all know that's not the case. But I've rambled enough. It's time to give Korkenstein a little bit to talk about as well. But man, it's unbelievable.
It's shocking that it got this far. Korkenstein, listen, I got a couple more quotes here from the article from Insider Gaming. One of which is pretty interesting. Says, regarding the report's claim, hold on a sec. Now, the report, as we read it live on the air, one of the things, and of course, I have to name the name here because Crispy Bomb went right back at him. I'm talking about Paul. Now, Paul Tassi is the one that quoted this fanboy, which again, he's a journalist. He works at a pretty pristine, paper or online website. I say paper because I'm old. And one of the things that he was challenging, which is very odd to me, is the 500 MAUs or the monthly active players, right? Now, the article says that they close by saying, again, the criticism that engagement on Xbox platform is that, and again, this is why I don't understand the criticism, because Satya Nadella himself, after talking about the success of Game Pass, confirmed that the Xbox platform is at an all-time high, and that they're well over 500 million monthly players over and this is going over last year's numbers. According to Satya Nadella, we've seen consistent growth in monthly users on cloud as well. Now, Paul Tassi tried to separate that, and this is, to me, very weird. Because I know that, if you want to break it down as to where the profitability is coming from, as per 61 points came from Activision, 8 points came from Xbox. I get all of that, but if we're being fair here, if we're being logical, Microsoft owns Activision, they own King, they own Blizzard, they own Bethesda, right? They own all these things. So when they make money, it doesn't go into the coffers of Bethesda and Activision. It goes into the coffers who owns those companies. That is Microsoft. So trying to split it, saying that, it was only X, Y, and Z monthly active users, and they're just using King as a pad, is dumb, because they're one company. One company's numbers all work under one umbrella. Trying to separate it to address a fanboy narrative is stupid. I'm sorry. Corkenstein, I want to get your hot take on this. Now, again, there's been a lot of really good ones, but I'm very interested to get yours, because this is as blatant as an Xbox tax as you can get, especially when you bring the press into it, where they try to blind us with, there are no Xbox tax. There's no such thing. You're making it up. And even people like, oh no, it's Alex, and Ham Solo had made mention of it. I watched his video. He has even come around to the point where, you know what? The Xbox tax is real. Let's get your hot take.
Oh yeah, it's 100% been real for a long, long time. There's certain things that people have held Xbox accountable for that they don't even hold PlayStation accountable for. It's not until Xbox does it, and then they get all this. We've said it before. I've said it for the last year I've been on your show. Xbox does something, they get a ton of heat, and then all of a sudden PlayStation does it. Now it's acceptable. Oh yeah, right. This is just the way the industry is going. Multi-platform is going to be another one of those things. There's no way around it. We'll talk about Sony and their absolute mess that they're in, but that's just what it is. They're going to have to go multi-plat. They already have Horizons on Switch. Come on, people. The writing's there. You can kick and fight all you want. But to go back to this article, and yeah, like you said, Paul Tassi, now you're looking stupid, Paul. You're looking stupid. You're over here. I'm sorry. I'm going to bring the smoke here. You're quote tweeting known console warriors. And rather than, say, hey, guess what? I messed up. I didn't have all the info. Kind of take a little bit of the high road and show a little bit, of journalistic integrity. You're going to sit there and double down. Just what are you doing? What are you doing? You're supposed to be a voice in the gaming industry, not somebody that perpetuates console warring. And now you're looking stupid. Because look at this. This story, even still, for these hedge fund managers to doom and, do all this stuff, I guarantee you, I bet you, the hundreds of millions of dollars they have Microsoft stock still. If Microsoft was really in that much of a trouble, what would they do? In a company
that sold it off, brother. That has sold it off.
But guess what? I guarantee you they still have those stocks. And because they're making money. It's a stupid narrative that somebody spun out of control, took out of context. And it doesn't help when you have people that, I'm gonna straight out say it, journalists that are perpetuating console war narratives. It doesn't help. Stop. Just stop it. And it's always like clockwork. Every year. Xbox has something great that comes out, Dev Direct or the showcase or something. All of a sudden, there's a breaking news report that, Xbox dead, Xbox is in trouble, Xbox is doing this. Clockwork. I guarantee you before the showcase happens, Go ahead. You guys can timestamp this, whatever. There's going to be some breaking story from some journalist or some whatever publication that's going to doom Xbox going into the showcase or try and doom Xbox going into the showcase. It happens every year. And it just doesn't make any sense. I don't think anything here, you guys have all got really, really great points. Even, like I said, Ham Solo was saying that other people are now coming around to the Xbox tax. And it's been something that has always been happening. And you know what? I'm glad the Xbox tax was there, because look at the Microsoft and Xbox that we have now. People held them to a standard. People held them accountable. And now we have things like Game Pass. We have Play Anywhere. What would it do for Nintendo and PlayStation to have those similar kind of things? Yeah, PlayStation, PlayStation has the Walmart Game Pass. It is what it is. They tried to make it, but they don't have day and date. They don't got day and date. What if PlayStation had day and date? Because these consumers and these fanboys held them accountable. Nintendo as well. They have probably one of the worst anti-consumer practices that I know, and they stifle. People are so scared to go after Nintendo because of fear of blacklist. And it's what happens if you actually hold these companies accountable, especially you as journalists that have the reach. You get things that are better. Crispy Bomb said it as well. We don't want PlayStation to go away. Competition is good. We need these people to fight for our money. That's where you guys are kind of missing, like some of the fanboys are missing. These companies are fighting for our money, but when you're not holding them accountable, all you're doing is like, here, just take my wallet, take as much as you want. They're ripping you off by you not holding them accountable because they have no reason to fight. They have no reason to be competitive. Stop. Just hold these people accountable, ask for better things, and you'll get value for your money.
Yeah. Great points all around. And again, I think, what we're dealing with a lot of the PlayStation loyalists is you got to remember, these are the same people that publicly said and retweeted and quote tweeted that they would pay $100 for the next God of War because it's quality. That they are willing to pay $100. How stupid does that actually sound? Charge them more. You know who started that? Everborn Saga. He has a shirt. You should buy it and wear it to the next convention.
Yes.
That's what you should do, because the idiocy of it is just not to be believed. Look, great way to open today's show. I got to catch up on Super Chats. There's been a couple of them there. And then we're going to get into the second half where, folks, I'm here to tell you, PlayStation is in a pickle. I have a list thanks to Kami, Okami _13, who is a phenomenal member of the community. And when I break down this list and you say it out loud, you're going to be scratching your head how PlayStation even exists anymore. Like they have canceled more games than they have released in this generation. Think about that for a second, folks. Let that sink into you. That's bonkers. But there are no articles condemning this kind of behavior because they're PlayStation. And apparently, well, they can't do any wrong, according to the games media. We're going to get to that in a hot second. But first Super Chat of the day comes the way of Game Shark, specifically pointing out Paul Tassi. He says, I'm looking forward to Paul Tassi's PlayStation is Dying article. Yeah, right. Thank you, panel, for all that you do for us. Hashtag don't be D-Batch. Hashtag don't be Tim Dog. I mean, what could you say? I'm only reading what the guy wrote. Freddie Fox drops a very generous $5 super chat and says, boom, I know you try not to console war, but man, Helldivers 2 outselling some of PlayStation's first-party games and TV-saved PlayStation's ass. It's time to TTS. And if you don't know what he was talking about, because it's not a part of today's conversation, it was confirmed by Shuhei Yoshida in that ginormous interview with Greg Miller, which, by the way, is 2 hours. I'm halfway through it. It is packed with big information. And he basically was a broken faucet, and he was just dropping bomb after bomb. Apparently, Helldivers 2 sold better than the $315 million developed Spider-Man 2. Think about that, ladies and gentlemen. Not good at all. Freddie Fox drops an additional very generous $2 super chat and says Yoshida has given Xbox a full clip time to unload. And that's what we're about. Again, we talked about it, me and C Money. That Yoshida clip, I'm literally going to be working on as soon as this show is done. I did drop 2 new videos today, this morning. I actually started working on it at 6:03 a.m. I got those 2 videos up. They're not like traditional YouTube videos. They're clips, but they are cut up and broken down, so it's easier for you to listen. Instead of it being a 90-minute or a 2-hour show, it's clipped into like 25, 30 minutes. Sometimes it's a little bit longer when you have a big panel, but it's easier to digest, especially if you have a busy life. Raiden Blade, who's been a channel member for an amazing 44 months. Raiden Blade, thank you so much for the support. He goes on to say Sony getting ready to be bought by Disney, and Microsoft is also going to be making 2K deals and acquisitions. More games are coming, and Xbox is happy. It's a W. I mean, again, new administration, new rules, and I would not. I said this before. I said it in jest. I don't think it's possible, but then again, I never thought that Xbox would own Call of Duty. I said this the other day. I think with Fuzzy. Well, I said, you know what? If you own Halo, you own Gears of War, you own Forza, you have all the Bethesda stuff, which of course is Elder Scrolls and Fallout and Doom, right? You own those. And now you own Call of Duty. Well, you might as well own, Grand Theft Auto, and just add that to the repertoire. So it could happen. I mean, again, I'm not an investment broker, but I think that it could happen. And again, it's not an exclusivity play. It's just to be able to say, hey, the next Grand Theft Auto, which probably won't be for another decade, will be in Game Pass. I mean, it's always possible. Showtime Reezy drops a very generous $2 super chat and says PlayStation's new slogan, wrap it up and let's move on. And I think that I know where you're going with that. And again, that's Jeff Keighley, who is part of PlayStation Nation. Will the insider Broke Boy Lewis who's been a channel member for 6 months, goes on to say this. I would say something, but pretty sure either Corkenstein, Fuzzy Belvedere, or Double Barrel Gaming have already said it, or will say it soon. He's we're always stealing that poor man's points. Brett Bingham drops a very generous $2 super chat and says, boom, check your DMs. Interesting news from Ecstasies. And Ecstasies is a phenomenal, well-connected YouTuber from Spain. Please follow that man. It's EXSTAS1S, Ecstasies. He is phenomenal, and he does have a lot of connections. He usually breaks big stories. I'll check it out, Brett. Thank you so much for that. Ham Solo, let's open up with a couple of things here.
Let's have a chat, bud.
Let's have a chat. So I want to give a shout out. Now, a couple of people did these lists, but the list I'm using is from someone that not only I find to be a premier member of the gaming community, he's on top of pretty much everything. And I'm talking about at Okami13_ on X. He basically put on or detailed a list of games that have been canceled by PlayStation, and it is absolutely astounding that they're even in any business. I said it on the opening. These cancellations, ladies and gentlemen, have cost Sony 3 to 5 years in development time. Because you got to remember, this isn't copy and paste. These games are expensive. It's a lot of man and woman power to get these games to work. It's when you shift ideologies, Ham, and you go from single player, story driven, narrative-focused adult-themed games and you chase a trend to the free-to-play model, and then you put all of these studios on these free-to-play games, and then when you are in it, meaning 2, 3, 4 years worth of development, sometimes even more than that, you pump the brakes, you cancel them, and you put them back on the single-player games. Hey, let's do this again. I'm here to tell you that those shifts not only cost lots of money, millions upon millions of wasted investment, but it takes time to reset and start from scratch. You're not going to use assets from a free-to-play multiplayer game and make that into a single-player game. It doesn't work like that. So here's the list, panel and chat. Concord, one of the biggest disasters in PlayStation history, $400 million over the course, I believe, of 7 years. Gone. Right? They bought the studio is gone, the game is canceled. Yesterday, we learned that a God of War multiplayer gas game was canceled. That was in development for years. We also had that we learned last year, The Last of Us multiplayer canceled, the Spider-Man 2 multiplayer canceled, and yesterday, like the God of War game, we have learned that the unnamed Bend Studios multiplayer game, which was the one that was greenlit in place of Days Gone 2, where the staff literally begged Sony to let them do Days Gone 2.
I remember that.
You remember that, right? That story. That's an official.
They were devastated. The head guy for Days Gone was so angry.
Pissed.
He was letting everybody know how angry he was on Twitter.
Yeah, and as he should. So you don't get a Days Gone 2, and the multiplayer game that they were forced to make has now been canceled. You also had the Twisted Metal game by Fire Sprite canceled. London Studios co-op game was canceled and the studio was closed. Deviation Games multiplayer game canceled. Payback, a third-person Destiny spinoff from Bungie, canceled. Now, think again, this is why Sony is in a pickle. Just look at the amount of losses on this list, and I'm not even talking about the PlayStation 2 flop, that to the point where Greg Miller asked a question and Shuhei Yoshida said, let's move on. Think about that for a second. This is an unbelievable list, and I am wondering when we're going to get the criticism of Sony's mismanagement, because those particular words have been used towards Xbox for years. Mismanagement, right? Where are the articles about Sony's mismanagement of studios and development dollars? They're nowhere to be found, because these journalists are cowards and they're loyalists to a brand because they're afraid that they'll be blacklisted if they go and they speak the truth on Sony. Let's talk about these 2 additional cancellations added to what is a growing list and an even bigger problem that people in games media and the games community refuse to acknowledge. Ham Solo, take it away, sir.
Man. I mean, it's wild to me, man. Sony out here looking like a State Farm commercial in California right now. Like they like bro, they are looking rough. Like Mahomes. Dude, your homes is on fire right now. Like they are not looking very good right now, bro. A God of War, like think about the list of games that were there, right? Like it's crazy. Like God of War live service game. To be honest, I'm interested. I'm interested in what you had in idea, right? But you don't follow through on it. So it's a nothing burger. Spider-Man to me could have been a banger. if that was like the whole like playing with friends, different Spider-Mans, like that could have been fun. Kind of like I'm thinking like a Helldivers kind of scenario, right? Where it's like 4 of you on the ground handling business.
Yeah.
Right? That could have been really fun. Gave up on it. Y'all launched Concord? For real? Y'all gave up on that too after launching it, which is even more insane, giving yourself the stamp for literally the shortest game to ever launch in a live service history that I know of. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that was the quickest game to ever be launched live service to come in and out, whether it was high budget or low budget. I'm pretty sure that was the fastest. I've never seen a game last only 2 weeks and have some people willing to play. Like some people were willing to play. It just was such a bad launch. It wasn't worth holding on to for them. So it was just terrible. Last of Us Factions back in 2023 when they canceled that back in I believe it was November of 2023 or something like that. It was either November 2023 or December, but I remember prior to that it was put on ice and everybody was like, oh, it's still going to come. I even thought, hey, it would be smart of them to maybe put it on ice until they can figure out what the best thing to do with it is, but don't cancel it. Like I was even in that camp of like, this is a big thing. You invested in a TV show for it. Oh, which reminds me of Twisted Metal.
Yep.
Twisted Metal, another game that was in development that got canceled, got canned. You got Mackie out here acting a fool, getting y'all money on Peacock. That show was good. To me,
it was excellent, dude.
Watching,
excellent.
Twisted Metal. I know the snobby pinky out people. They were like, "Yo,"
and they're coming out with a season 2. Ham, come on, bro.
So that's fine. That's fine. I'm fine with that. But I enjoy entertainment, and I felt like it was entertaining. And I like the actor. I like Anthony Mackie. I think he's a dope actor.
Great actor. Yeah.
So, but you did all that work to get a TV show for multiple different IPs of games. And then we're all thinking, man, all right, well, live service probably incoming, right? The one live service that's still on the board right now, that's still incoming, is to me the least attractive of all of them outside of Concord, which is Horizon, which they're saying in while trying to hire somebody for the team over there at Guerrilla, they're looking to make sure that the servers are stable to be able to hold up to 1 million players. That's wild. I understand trying to get ahead of it because of the launch that you had with Annie Cheat and whatnot with Helldivers 2, because that launch was tragic. Even though they got big numbers and they eventually fixed it a few weeks after, it was still a horrible launch, right? I mean, a lot of people are giving everybody that wants to look at Xbox and be like, "Oh man, y'all launched Flight Sim bad." Flight Sim was bad for a day. Flight Sim was bad for a whole 24 hours, maybe 12 hours. Helldivers was bad for almost a month.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of what Boom is alluding to, saying, yo, like where's this double standard at? Why can't y'all hold them? And then on top of it, not only did they have the server issue, they had the PSN issue that messed up people all around the world trying to get into the game. That news cycle lasted a week. Wasn't a big deal, apparently. Like to me, this stuff is crazy. People need to take note, because over here with Sony having all these canceled games, as we alluded to earlier, bro, you can't just throw a Band-Aid on. You can't just quickly fix it. You can't just, we just got another game in our back pocket that we're ready to release real quick. It ain't like that. It's going to be another few years. And see, this is why in part of the leaks of the Insomniac leaks, they talked about going to shorter games because they knew they're going to have to cancel some of these probably. They're going to have to cancel some of these, and then the development time isn't going to allow them to make a huge game. And then on top of it, they can't afford to make that huge game, and they need to be able to serve you guys at something. So they're going to make something that's going to be in a shorter vein. It's going to be 5 to 10 hours. You're going to enjoy it. You're going to eat it. And it's going to be great. I'm probably going to enjoy it as well. But the thing is they're going to have to go down to that level and work their way back up, because right now they are spending way too much to be able to give you something of mass quality consistently is what I should say, because I think Ghost of Yote will be another big quality game, because I don't feel like Sucker Punch has been affected too much by all this because they've been left alone to do their own thing. What's incredible is their best studio over there being Naughty Dog, in my opinion. They're behind. And if your best studio's behind and they haven't even came out with a game yet this generation, you got a problem on your hands.
You're not wrong, brother. I mean, great points all around. And again, there is an inherent problem. It's growing at Sony. It's one of those things where, Crispy Bomb, if you look at the ship, trying to plug the one hole isn't going to save it. There are multiple problems at Sony, and it starts with leadership. There is obviously a reason why all of the old guard is gone. Shuhei Yoshida, who, by the way, is not only one of my favorite people in the industry, he's considered, at least in my opinion, one of the nicest gentleman gamers in the industry. And he's no longer there. And what happened to him came out in that interview where he did not think the gas game way was the right way. And he said it when he was speaking to Greg Miller that he would have pushed back against it. And when he did push back against it, after holding a position for 11 years as someone being in charge of first party, he was sent down to the basement and given a budget to deal with indies. They put that man on the pay no mind list after over 20 years in his as an employee and 11 years in that position, right? He finally left on his own, decided to leave PlayStation, not retire, because he's working on some other stuff, but he left PlayStation, and I would imagine that's because there's all of these changes. Crispy, I think it's hard to ignore this amount of cancellations. The question is, what does Sony do to figure it out, so to speak? And when does the games media start asking the difficult questions like, is there a leadership problem at Sony? Is Herman Hulst the answer? Because I didn't see anybody calling for that guy's job. But I know that Phil Spencer has been on the chopping block for freaking years. Let's break it down.
You know, I look at the entire gaming landscape at this point as like a trash fire. I see it as one company is willing to help PlayStation, which is kind of funny, and the other is not willing to help Xbox. But they don't care. Microsoft doesn't care. They want you to buy their game. If it's at full retail, they don't care. This is where I go and say, like, there is something for PlayStation or stands to watch in a week. And guess what? It's Doom to Dark Ages. It's right there in front of your face. Now, am I already subscribed to Game Pass? And do I love Game Pass? And I think it is the greatest thing since I could go shop at Blockbuster. Yes, I do. I think the plethora of games that are in front of your face far supersedes paying how much for PlayStation still? Even a PS5, like OG PS5. It's still over $400. I already have a Series X. Been sitting there for years now. Like basically like first time adopter. Got it when I couldn't get it type thing. And it was thanks to one of my friends, which I appreciate. But seriously, like, when the stock was low, I got it for the price I thought I would be able to pay for it. You look at it now, the landscape. Xbox is doing one thing. And their one thing is, it's okay. Like, we will throw some older IPs. Yeah, some new. Like, I get, we've had this argument about Hi-Fi Rush. Okay, that was a new IP. Right there in front of your face. But Sea of Thieves, the success that it's had on PlayStation is, I mean, can we deny it? Do we understand that Microsoft is going to say, hey, maybe Nate the Hate's right. And he says, Gears of War Ultimate Edition and only that one game goes to PlayStation. Does that mean it's not going to sell? I wouldn't say Microsoft would do 70. They would do 40. And then you go and say how many millions after all these years they could sell on that said console. Is that a bad thing? This is where we get into the crux of the situation. And we say, okay, like Helldivers 2, it actually did really good, but it was also on PC.
Yes.
So we look at that and we say, okay, all right, Days Gone got a bigger following after it released on PC. Right? I mean, it literally like superseded what the PlayStation fan base was willing to deal with. Okay. We on Xbox, we play multiplayer games. I understand like some of the stands don't understand that. That's okay. But recently, I mean, Xbox has been like single player. Oh, it's on Game Pass though. Single player. What are we talking about here? We're in a different realm. And I think that's where the disconnect is with the ones that, like they follow the stands, but they don't necessarily read what they say. They just agree with it. And then I go and call them out because, I mean, Boom knows I follow a lot of stands unless they block me. I mean, or they say something really nasty to me. You know what I mean? Personal stuff, which is weird. I mean, seriously. But we have to realize that PlayStation doesn't know what to do. They don't. They won't until they screw up more and more. And right now they're on this, like, basically that boulder's coming down the hill like Indiana Jones, and they're running from it. And they don't understand what to do to stop it. And now they're canceling games, which, I mean, like, the Twisted Metal thing, like, that was a no-brainer.
That hurts the most to me because I'm a huge fan. Yeah. Just
put it out there and see what happens because, I mean, we haven't had a vehicle, like, destruction game. I mean, yeah, they put out Destruction All-Stars. That's not the same thing, man.
You're looking for like a Vigilante 8 Twisted Metal type of deal.
Oh, my God. And that would be a good gas game, especially with Twisted Metal Season 2 coming out on Peacock. They've already wrapped shooting people. Like, it's a perfect time to do that, and they canceled it years before. Or a year before.
Bro,
I mean, seriously.
It would be so diabolical if Microsoft released the Vigilante 8 since Activision's the one.
Well, they own the IP now.
I would freaking love that. Vigilante 8. I'm gonna tell you right now, people, dude, I played both games, and Vigilante 8, what was it? Episode 2 or whatever the hell they called it, was phenomenal.
It was really good.
It was really good. It was fun. Look, like, live service games have to be fun first. You know what I'm saying? Like, they go off of Call of Duty, but then they have Warzone. You know what I'm saying? Like, Call of Duty, you have Black Ops, and then you have Warzone, and people play both. And that's the point that I'm trying to make to people. Microsoft is like, okay, you can play here, you can play here, you can do whatever you want. I don't care. But I caution people because everybody thinks all the IP is coming to PlayStation. I question you because I think they're strategically saying, okay, 10-plus-year-old game, by all means, have it. And we'll even make it better on PlayStation. But at the end of the day, it's still going to be crossplay. People ignore that and don't understand that Microsoft's playing with all the cookie jars. They are going to do what they want because guess what? Their market cap is what? And Sony's market cap is what? So if they help Sony, I have no problem with it because I want competition. I want that. And I think Sony saying, hey, we're going to all single player now is a bad thought process because they canceled games that we would actually be interested in. And then they've lost games like SOCOM. Where's SOCOM? Where did it go? What? Because you got hacked once that you've destroyed SOCOM? You have an IP that can possibly compete with Call of Duty. I'm not saying it's going to go that realm because it already has mind share, but think about it. SOCOM was like one of the first actual online multiplayer games I've ever played in my life. And there's a lot of us out there. And you go and say, okay, like we got hacked and, SOCOM 4 just died. Come on.
Yeah,
it's
listen,
been over 10 years. Like, what are we doing?
Dude, there are so many. Now, granted, there was a story a couple of weeks ago, Crispy, where, and this came the way of Herman Holtz, who's still in charge, or one half of in charge at PlayStation, regarding them returning to older IP. You might get Sly Cooper, you might get Jak and Daxter. Maybe they return to Twisted Metal, SOCOM, Resistance Fall of Man.
My problem is, Boom, is that what is older IP anymore to them? Not to Xbox, to them. And
that's a good question.
The problem. Yeah. And it's like 5 years, it's not older IP in my eyes. Older IP is 10 plus years. And that's the way I look at it. And that's the way I see it. And I say, can you, like, when they canceled Twisted Metal, I was so mad because I would have actually bought a PlayStation for that. I really would have, because I needed something like that now, because it hasn't happened in a long time. It's been so long since we've had, a car shooter game that really gets in depth. Like I would have almost bought a PlayStation for Twisted Metal Black, but I was out of it. You overpriced me. And that's where I say, like, come on, like, I don't mind spending money, but you got to give me something. And all I see is cancellation after cancellation. Yep. And some of them, like the Spider-Man, like co-op, like I would play that.
A lot of people, and people like myself who appreciate Marvel, who's a Marvel stan, would have easily bought skin after skin after skin, like I'm doing in Call of Duty. Listen, great stuff, Fuzzy, all around. This is, again, we're dropping bombs here, folks. And again, it's just so, Fuzzy Belvedere. I want to move on to you, but I have two particular quotes from Jason Schreier, who reported on this. Breaking: PlayStation has canceled 2 more live service games from Ben Studio and Bluepoint Games. Bloomberg has learned. Fans have long wondered what Bluepoint has been working on for the last couple of years, and I can report it was a live service God of War game that is officially canceled. Now, he goes on to say in another report, PlayStation fans have speculated for years about Bluepoint's new project since the well-received PlayStation 5 remake, Demon Souls, in 2020. And I can report that from 2020 to 2022, they were helping on God of War Ragnarok. And since then, they have been on their own live service project that was canceled today. Now their future is unclear. Now, mind you, that's something that we haven't learned, whether or not they're going to close these studios. And let's hope not, because when they close studios, that means people lose their jobs. And that means that people who lost their jobs can no longer fend for themselves or their families. And nobody on this panel or in this chat should want to see that. These are people like you and me that have responsibilities and livelihoods. And there's nothing more horrific or scary than worrying about how you're going to keep the roof over your head. So again, gaming is gaming. Real life is something else. Fuzzy, look. This, I said it before and I will repeat it again, a tale of two different companies. The Sony that you knew no longer exists. They are in a tailspin. Their leaders that are currently trying to figure out don't seem to have a direction. There is no roadmap. All we keep hearing about from console warriors and, sadly enough, journalists who are supposed to carry that badge of journalistic integrity, which is a farce, all we keep hearing about is 65 million consoles sold. Folks, grow the F up. It's not about console sales. Yes, are they still important? Sure. But you cannot consistently cancel IP, cancel games, close studios, pivot, repivot, and then go back to changing again without delaying your first-party games. This is why their ideology has been money hat, money hat, money hat. And those windows are now closing because Square Enix, one of their biggest benefactors for exclusivity, has said no more. And that is why they have the quote-unquote China project, because they are now working with indies in China to try and lock up those games, because that is all they have. They have all that they have in their repertoire moving forward seems to be Demon Soul-like games that are now becoming very samey on PlayStation. I think that they're in big trouble. What are your thoughts on this?
Sorry about that. I was on mute. It's troubling to me that given that Jim Ryan, before he left, had made mention that they wanted to do somewhere between 10 and 12 games as a service.
Correct.
There were a lot of games that they wound up canceling within the first couple of years of that initiative, which I guess may have saved them some money. But in the grand scheme of things, they're never going to recoup the money on the games that they canceled, much like, Scalebound, although people still like to bring up Scalebound as if it's always, this cloud over Microsoft. But nobody really talks about like the cancellation of factions, at least in the gaming media end of things, or talk about the Spider-Verse game that was canceled. And those are, at least from our gamer eyes standpoint, would seem to have longer legs than what Concord have. Like, in all honesty, once Concord was canceled, I said, if I was like a higher up over at Naughty Dog, I would storm in somebody's office, Herman Holtz's office probably, and say, let's just release factions tomorrow as is. Like, whatever we worked on up until that point it was canceled, just put it out there. See if it earns enough players within the 24-hour period. I can almost guarantee you it would earn more players in 24 hours than the entire lifespan of Concord, both beta and launch. And that would probably be a better way to recoup some of that loss. Because let's not forget, they spent probably a couple $100 million to get that studio, and then the hundreds of millions to pay the employees and for the electric bill, the building or whatever, all the costs involved as far as that game being created, which is somewhere in the estimation of 400 million plus. That's a lot of money that could have went to another game. And in fact, that could have gone to Spider-Man 3, which Spider-Man 2 was already in the 300 million range. So that 400 million would have been probably better spent in Spider-Man. Although, come to find out, Helldivers 2 outdid Spider-Man 2 in sales, which boggles my mind. It's like at some point you have to realize either your formulas aren't working like they used to, or you have to expand or change. And a lot of people used to, rag on Xbox for making whatever changes they've made over the years, but in the grand scheme of things, they were probably looking at the metrics on the back end saying, well, we get players less engagement from players on this, so let's try this. And sometimes to our unhappiness or whatever you want to call it, but in the grand scheme of things, they're stronger for it with a strong roadmap for the next few years. Sony, on the other hand, just has a movie roadmap or TV and animation series roadmap, which, yeah, they have Ghost of Yotai. Yes, they have Intergalactic, which could be 3 or 4 years out. But much like you had said earlier, how long before we do see a Last of Us 3? How long before we see what Sucker Punch's, game might be after Ghost of Yotai? Like, are they just going to be the Ghost of Tsushima or Ghost of Yotai studio? Are they ever going to go back to Infamous at any time? When it comes to, with Sony Santa Monica, are they only going to be a God of War studio? Are they ever going to try their hand at another, IP? I mean, at some point, people have to look at what the overall is, what Sony is doing versus what Microsoft's doing. A lot of those studios, was it nearly 4? Well, I know it's at least 30 plus studios. Some people say 40 studios, but like each one of those studios has multiple teams, and each one of those teams is usually working on a specific project, or they're the backup doing a lot of the continuous or ongoing content for said game that they've already released. So there's a lot of things already stacked up, which, knock on wood, I haven't heard any cancellations. Like, if anything, you would have thought Everwild would be that title that they would talk about being canceled, but we're probably going to find out sometime this year when that's being released. Things have actually turned around on that. They got their heads focused on that game as well as still doing content for Sea of Thieves. And they even were able to port it over to PlayStation, which it sold, a lot better than I think even Xbox anticipated or Microsoft anticipated with Sea of Thieves. But all things considered, when is Sony going to wake up and realize when your competition has 2 or 3 games in your top 10 most played games on your platform, that's less money you're taking in from those said customers. Sure, you're getting the 30% on that, but Microsoft, your competitor at that point, is getting the 70% on each one of those. Sure, they have the cost of the studios and staff and all that stuff, but that's more than double what you're getting. And even if there's some high costs of operation for that, it's not usually going to exceed the 60% mark or anything around those lines as far as how the things are divvied up. Like, anybody that believes that Microsoft is going to put less money in their pocket than Sony will at the end, which, yeah, you could say Sony's pure profit because all they had to do was just, allow the game there. Well, they still have server costs and things like that involved. They still have other operating costs involved, but all of that aside,
they don't get the game for free.
Yeah, exactly. So there's still money coming out of their pocket in general. And it's not going to be to the same extent as what their competitors doing. Like, they relied too heavily, like somebody said in the chat, they relied too heavily on Call of Duty money, which was great when it was Activision that was the ones pocketing it. But now your direct competitor is pocketing that other 70% or 80%, depending on which negotiations you follow and stuff. But it's boggling to me that no one's really raising the red flag on asking, well, what are these studios working on? How far are these games out? With these cancellations, like, I know a lot of people were being impatient when Microsoft acquired these additional studios in 2017. And they're like, where's the games? Dude, they just purchased the studio a couple of years ago. Now they've had ample time to work on these games. They have ample time to get these teams up to speed on additional content for games that they've released shortly after. And they're working on either sequels or new projects. So now the games are here. But that still took like a 5 or 6 year range before they could get, into their cadence. And that's with the, pandemic thrown in the mix of that. So now, okay, post pandemic, maybe Sony can bound back, within 3 to 5 years, but that's still 3 to 5 years from now. Is that going to be focused on next gen? Are they raising the white flag for this gen as far as what they're going to release? Not saying that they're giving up and, taking their ball and going home, but are we looking forward to the next gen of PlayStation already? Like many people were, talking about the PS5 Pro 2 and 3 years before it was even announced. It's like, oh, well, the Xbox thinks it's so powerful. Just wait until that PS5 Pro comes out. No, that took a couple of years, didn't it? So why aren't these games that you're blindly assuming that Sony has in the works and ready to go aren't going to take a similar amount of time? And why aren't we talking about PSVR 2 not, performing like it probably should have, or having some of the key things that would have probably made it a little bit more successful, like back compat with the first PSVR, out of the box compatibility with PC instead of waiting until later? Like, had they, if you're going to get into this PC space, which Microsoft has been doing for quite a few years now, it would have made sense to adopt having that PSVR 2 work on PC right out of the box, because that means you could actually cross sell it to more people outside of your platform, whether they are buying games directly now or later. I think that would have a better opportunity as far as embracing that PC crowd that they're so desperately trying to now to get that additional income. And then looking at how they restructured their subscription services, and you're not getting first party stuff, which fine. If you're going to champion that setup, that's great. Continue to buy your games. But it seems like for everybody that's talking about continuously buying these games, and these games are selling less. Like, I remember having this discussion with a few people as far as like, did the $70 really kill the 20 million sales? Now, there are games that are selling well over 20 million at the $70 price point, although some of them are more PC focused, which we all know PC is going to go to CD keys or places they're like and get them for a discount. So things like was it Black Myth Wukong? Yeah, that did 20 million in sales, but I would say less than a tenth of that was on PlayStation. But in the grand scheme of things, looking at overall how the $70 game has affected sales, there's only a few standouts. Like Call of Duty is the only one that really survived being the $70 and still selling 20 million units without a problem. Now, remember, early on in the generation, they still had cross-gen units, which were 60 for at least, I think, the first year or so. Then it went to 70. So that was kind of like a misnomer saying that, oh, well, 70 was quickly adopted. Now we're seeing games sell slower. Yeah, they get an extra $10 per person, but they're actually selling less of them. So now it's almost like, do we see this, price bump, which Sony was originally the guys that wanted to make it 80 instead of 70. And I think, people from Take-Two and a few others talked them off that ledge, but it just feels like nobody in the Sony camp is really paying attention. They're so blinded by what Xbox is doing and, waiting for games from Xbox as opposed to knowing where the games are coming from PlayStation. I mean, sure, you can get a money hat here and there, but wasn't the whole conversation or the arguments and console warring before about the exclusives? And if your exclusives from your first party aren't really showing up and getting canceled left and right, yet when Scalebound was canceled, it was like, oh, well, no, that's it for Xbox. So how many games were canceled? What was it? 6 games in like the past year or so from PlayStation, and no PlayStation's dead article?
No, none.
So I don't know. If I was a PlayStation only person, I would be looking forward to possibly either Apple or Amazon stepping up to bail them out, be that sugar daddy that they need, because they're running low on the purse strings right now. And people can clip this all they want and be like, oh, he has no idea what he's talking about. But it's like, if you're not seeing the writing on the wall as far as how they're releasing less games, Yoshida was saying you should buy the remasters so they can afford the. Well, he didn't say it this way, but
yeah, we're gonna break that down.
Buy the remasters so they can afford to make the new games. That's what he's essentially saying. Like, if you don't buy the remasters, well, they just wasted all that money and talent doing that remaster. Are they going to have the funds to go and say, okay, let's make a Last of Us 3 with a $500 million budget?
Yeah.
No, they're not going to do that. Like, if you buy the remaster of 1 and 2, they can say, okay, well, we got a couple $100 million here, so that lightens the blow, and it's feeling like a $300 million budget as opposed to a $500 million budget. But nobody wants to talk about that, and it just boggles my mind. I mean, I'm still playing GT7 on my PS5. I would like to play, Ghost of Yotai. I would like to see some other, new IPs on that console. I have no idea when Intergalactic is coming about, but it would be nice to at least have them respond to some sort of roadmap for the console as opposed to movie theaters and my TV or anime and so forth. But it is what it is. That's it.
No, I mean, great points all around. Now, listen, real quick. I do want to bring in a couple of points of contention for Korkenstein, and one of which he actually brought to our attention. So, from Jeff Grubb's podcast last night, we have learned some shocking information. Cork, thanks so much for this, brother. I want to hand you this, and I want you to run 100 yards and get a touchdown because, again, this is from Grubb's podcast last night. Regarding the PlayStation canceled games, and according to what Cork brought into, and again, this is directly from Jeff Grubb. Apparently, it was because of Concord. Quote: "This happened because of Concord. Like this should be clear. That's what I've been told. Sony has been shell shocked from Concord, and now they're going around to every studio and they're reassessing every single project." And if it is a live service project, it has a lot of friction going against it, preventing it from getting a chance to actually come out, end quote. That's very interesting. Now, regarding Cork, the comment, I have the actual quote from the Greg Miller interview with Shuhei Yoshida regarding single-player games, how they're funded, and what PlayStation will be doing in order to fund these games. Check this out, folks. It says and this comes the way of Culture Crave, which is a X account that has nearly 600,000 followers. So this is one of the trades. They go on to say, former PlayStation Studios boss Shuhei Yoshida says fans should support remasters if they want first-party PlayStation 5 games. And this is the quote: "Single-player games now cost so much, so they need additional income. By doing remasters and porting to PC, we'll be able to make these games." End quote. Pretty powerful stuff. Really does set up Sony for the remaster station, right? We keep seeing that they're bringing back The Last of Us 1, The Last of Us 2, Horizon, and the list just keeps going on and on and on. And if you are someone who doesn't own these, they're charging full boat. If you're someone that does own them, instead of smart delivery, so one of the features that is great on Xbox, you are asked to pay additional monies to get the graphical enhancements that you paid for with your new potentially $700+ on a PlayStation 5 Pro. Let's get into this, Korkenstein, because I think PlayStation is at a point where the more that they spiral out of control, the less first-party games they're going to be able to put out, simply because, and I'm not being facetious here, folks, can afford to do it. You cannot cancel millions of dollars of investment in what equates to now, you were asking, Fuzzy, how many games? A total of 9 projects canceled. 9 of them, including one of the worst in video game history. I think Concord might be as bad as E.T. from the Atari 2600, where they filled landfills with those games. Let's get your hot take, Cork.
Yeah, I mean, this is the right move for Sony as far as going back and reassessing. I'm going to start this caveat off with PlayStation is in a mess. They're internally a mess right now. People can try and defend it. We kind of talked about it in our DMs and stuff like that. There's certain people kind of damage controlling this, but they are a mess internally. There's no doubt about that. With that said, Sony will be fine. PlayStation's fine right now as far as money wise, as far as revenue wise. They're still making billions of dollars. They're in no real trouble immediately, but I hope this is the shakeup that PlayStation gets, that where they're like, hey, we gotta do something. And sadly, I think moving away from live service is probably the worst decision that PlayStation can make right now.
I agree.
You need those consistent MAUs. For those that have been following for a while, I've said the same thing numerous times. You need those consistent MAUs, and MAUs are monthly active users, because you want people to keep spending in that ecosystem. If you have the monthly active users inside your ecosystem consistently, they're going to keep spending in that ecosystem. This is why Xbox supposedly has been dead 9-10 times already, yet they're still making billions of dollars. The reason being, it's not about exclusives. It's not about console sales. It's about the live service. It's about the subscriptions. It's about the MXTs, the microtransactions. That's what's been keeping Microsoft in business and constantly seeing revenue generated over and over and over. I think Jim Ryan was right in the sense that, yes, they should invest in live service, but the execution was done poorly. They spent $3 billion on Bungie when Bungie can't even run itself. It was a bad buy. That was supposed to be, I think, the studio that was going to take them into the next level of doing this live service, which was the whole point, and it was just a total bust. They kind of got a bad deal on that one from Bungie. But yeah, I think PlayStation's fine for now. They just need to reevaluate and what they're doing. And yeah, just because Concord was a bust doesn't mean you should start canceling all your live service and just go. This is why you're getting remasters. And this is why, yeah, it is true that yes, you should be supporting these games because that's what's funding, and dev costs are getting higher and higher and higher and higher, making, sales even harder and harder and harder. It's just level of arrogance, though, when I read that, because it's like PS3 arrogance, like you should buy these remasters because that's what's supporting, or you could just make a live service game, and actually support it and actually do something with it. You had Twisted Metal. Like that was probably the biggest bum out of mine when I heard it was canceled, was Twisted Metal.
Hey, Cork, do you mind if I throw a wrench in there a little bit?
Yeah.
Or at least, I mean, maybe this is actually an assist. I don't know. Maybe this is a lob I'm throwing. I find it interesting now that we have we kind of have closure. I feel like when it comes to Jim Ryan era, right?
Yeah.
So you look at Sean Layden, he says, hey, gaming's getting too expensive. Or actually, let me go back a little bit. Shuhei Yoshida got, pushed out of there because he's not, bringing in or pretty much because they had a kind of a rough generation that with the PS3 and whatnot. Then comes along Sean Layden, which he ends up getting pushed out because, he's saying, yo, we're spending a little too much money on gaming, spending too much. So then who replaces him? Jim Ryan. Jim Ryan says, oh, okay, let's reinvest in all of our IP, which is what you can see right here is what the reinvestment really was live service and their own IP being the live service. Now we have, unfortunately, Herman Holst, and he has a partner that nobody talks about. He has a partner that nobody talks about that literally just does like the hardware side, I guess, right? And he has to pick up the pieces in the midst of Hiroki Totoki coming down saying, y'all don't know what y'all doing. And I'm tired of it. I don't know, like, Corgenstein, do you have any idea how Herman Holst picks up the baton and still wants to complete that 400 meters?
Yeah, multi-platform. It's happening. That's exactly what they're going to have to do. If they're going to keep going with this single player, mentally focused, we're going to cancel.
It was a lob. My bad.
Yeah, they got to go multi-plat. That's the only way. If they want to stay with this if they want to go with this only single player focus, like multiplayer, live service, that makes sense as multi-plat. You could, that you can't do live service games anymore locked to one ecosystem. You have to branch out. You have to hit. That's why Bungie wanted to keep Destiny multi-plat. They needed it. It's not because they wanted to, it's because they literally needed it to keep in business. Marathon, same way. Even MLB, they saw the potential in what they were losing. Hey, no, you need to come to other platforms because we just can't keep locking this down.
See,
Square
I
Enix,
don't.
well,
I can't. Look, man. Like when Sony's trading at under freaking GameStop, there's an issue. Okay, like there's something going on, and I think that's the problem. They're not. I mean, all respect to Japanese people, but sometimes you got to say, okay, like we're in different markets, and we gotta, say, okay, like we got to bring out games and stuff like that, and to just continue to cancel games because, I mean, let's be honest, that's all Sony's done. Okay, like for the past 2 years, basically. Okay, they cancel games. Goes to Yotai. Okay, great. All right, what else you got?
Well,
Nothing.
Crispy Bomb. It's been remasters, sequels, and canceled games this entire generation.
But
Yes.
I thought they didn't like old games from Jim Ryan. Okay,
Very
Like,
interesting. Yes.
Don't look at
let's
the
be
camera like
honest
that,
here.
Fuzzy.
Okay, like
Don't look at the
you know,
camera like
I
that, Fuzzy.
understand. Like I love old games that need a little, paintbrush. Like, hey, like we can make this look better. But lately, it's been not so great, and especially coming out with a new console, there's a problem here. Okay, and the problem is that all y'all that bought that PS5 Pro, which I was interested in, but they gave me nothing. Okay, I want to play games. I'm not just gonna buy it to like stream to my TV or something. Like it's not going to do anything more than the Series X does. So what are we talking about here? Okay, like we're talking about you don't have any games except rehashed, remasters, and a couple games that are sequels now. What are we talking about?
Well,
All right.
I think what we are seeing happen here, and Cork, I do want to bring you back in to finish up the point because you said that you think that this multi-plat strategy, something that Xbox has been piled on, kicked in the ribs, and thrown into the gutter by everyone. Okay, even some Xbox fans are appalled that they're doing this. The industry is changing, and right now, unfortunately, big changes have to happen in order for your favorite platform to live, to continue on. Microsoft normally gets all the arrows. They are ahead of the curve. And I've said this before, and I want this to be clear, folks. I don't like any of this multi-platform shit. I am not a fan of it. I like games where they're supposed to be, but I'm also very old. My first console, it was 1978 with the 2600. So I have an old mindset, but I have also adapted with the times. I'm not going to be left behind. So when something goes to PlayStation, okay, it's going to go to PlayStation. But at some point, Cork, and we're going right back to your point, PlayStation may not want to do a multi-platform way of doing business. They may be forced to. And the first one that I see going is Helldivers 2, which I had reported on speaking with somebody in the middle of the year of 2024 that was a game that Sony was seriously considering bringing over to Xbox. And you know what, folks? I don't know for sure if that's going to happen, but if Sony wants to make money, they'll release it on Xbox because it is a multi-platform game where they can do cross-play, and people on Xbox would gladly line up to buy that game, and I'm one of them, and I already bought it on PS5. It is very easy money, but and the problem with Sony right now is they are a very antiquated company. They have been, and again, you got to remember, yes, there's a big office here in America, but Japan, Sony, they are very old school minded. They have the old school mindset where we do things, it's our brand, we don't put it anywhere else. That is not acceptable anymore. And the sooner they learn that, Maybe they'll increase their stock past $21 versus Microsoft's 422. Big stark difference there. Please continue your point about the changes. And more so, I do want you to reiterate your thoughts and your points on the cancellations and how that actually hurts Sony's bottom line ultimately.
Yeah, I mean, these are the games that they really, really do need. But I get it. You can't. I mean, the thought process is there. God of War's big. God of War sells. God of War is, a staple of PlayStation. How can we generate more money from that IP? Let's make it live service. But in reality, how would you do that? I can't think of a great way that just isn't recycled gameplay. You have to find out some way to make it work. And that's the part where I think Sony's just kind of throwing stuff at the wall, hoping it sticks. But that's just not the way with live service, especially with live service being such a gamble now. You're seeing a lot of companies try and come out with live service games that are just falling flat. You have Helldivers 2. That was a pretty good success. That was heavily carried by the PC crowd anyways, by the way. But I'm trying to think of another one that's came out. See, that's kind of the hard part is live service is a big gamble, and I get Sony being scared. It's hard to dive into something that, like you said, you're going to spend millions and millions and millions of dollars and not see that revenue come back at all, or at least have it longer than what you expected it to.
Well, maybe Corkenstein, they should go to the classic way of what we used to love in video games is what I feel like Space Marine really set themselves up for success by not only having a story in co-op, but also having a whole, side kind of live service thing going on where you can, battle it out with other people. Very similar, like they have the recipe with Destiny. They literally have the recipe with Destiny, but they just don't know how to implement it properly with other games for it to make sense. As you just said about the whole God of War thing, it doesn't make sense. How are you going to get a season 6 out of God of War? How?
But see, that's the thing. Destiny is very antiquated in itself. Like that model doesn't work anymore. You have people that are Fortnite, Fortnite and Call of Duty. These are games that trying to get people outside of the ecosystem of the gaming ecosystem that they're already in and to a new live service is incredibly difficult. And like I said, Destiny kind of shot themselves in the foot with a lot of the stuff that they did. They're not as great as Destiny once was. And this is coming from an avid Destiny 1 player for years. I played Destiny. I absolutely love Destiny, but the direction they went because of one horrible mismanagement from Bungie, they were forced into having to put something like Eververse in, and then FOMO came about, and now Destiny is kind of a shell of what it used to be. This amazing game that just isn't there anymore. And with the gaming ecosystem and the gaming atmosphere changing with consumers, it's hard because this is why 50% of people, it was reported on earlier in the year, are still on PS4s because they play Fortnite, they play Roblox, they're on Minecraft, they're on Call of Duty. There's no reason to upgrade because people love this gas bubble, this black hole, sinkhole of a gas kind of atmosphere and ecosystem that people enjoy playing and that they want to stay with. It's hard for people to break outside of that bubble and to get people replanted in a new ecosystem, in a new live service game when that's all they kind of play right now. It's a gamble. And I get Sony wanting to branch out and try and get into live service and kind of being a little hesitant with it. They just got to be really, really smart with it. And they just haven't put themselves in a great spot. Bungie, like I said, Bungie was probably the lifeboat that they were looking for, and it sank as soon as it hit the water. It was just they didn't set themselves up for success for live service. And that's why they're focusing heavily on remasters now and trying to get this stuff out. And they're looking at other developers to kind of carry that foothold. But everybody's already seeing, I can't lock these games down to one ecosystem anymore. It's going back to what I was saying earlier. You're gonna end up losing a large part of your consumer base locking to one ecosystem. And every developer is seeing that. That's why Square Enix is like, nah, we're going to Xbox 2 now. MLB, Bungie, They all want to be part of somewhere else. And even Helldivers too, not wanting to lock themselves to the PlayStation Network, because now they just lost access to 73 countries that they could have sold in. That's the mentality, is you have no choice right now. Nintendo only gets away with it because their games are so low cost to develop. They don't have mocap. They don't have high quality graphics. They're not pushing, the 5090 graphics or that kind of. Their gameplay's simple. They don't have a lot of crazy voice acting. Their hardware isn't the top next gen kind of hardware. That's the only reason why. But I guarantee you, if for some unknown reason the Switch 2 flops, they're going to be looking at multi-platform sooner than later.
Stellar Blade want to spread them wings.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's big changes are coming to the industry, folks. We all have to understand that market disruption, and again, shout out to Hargi Chani, who's in the chat, who specifically does try to bring that point home. Market disruption changes up the game. And unfortunately for the market as a whole, things are more expensive, whether it be chips, whether it be development costs, whether it be rent for the studios to actually build the games in. Everything is going up in price, and the games are still. And I mean this with, a giant hopium that we don't see for next generation. They go up to $80 because there are rumors and talks about the next Grand Theft Auto costing $100 for entry. That to me would break the internet, and it would break people as a whole. I don't think anybody would buy games wholesale. They'd have to wait for a sale because, again, that's where Game Pass comes in. And that is where and why people will start flock toing it, because there's going to be so many games this year that are AAA bombs that we know of. It is going to be the biggest year in Xbox first-party history for releases, and that is all going into the service day and date. There is going to come a point where people are going to look at that service and say, I need to live there. Now, whether they move their whole libraries, I don't think that's the case. But Sony, getting back to them, find themselves in a position I don't think that they could have seen coming, and a position that I don't think we've ever seen the brand be in. Now, granted, Shuhei, during that 2-hour interview, talked about how Sony almost went the way of the dodo after the PlayStation 3's launch. If it wasn't for their TV business and their receiver business, PlayStation would have been closed down. Those are words coming out of his mouth. Go watch it. He brings up a lot of really shocking things. But look, folks, we are over the 2-hour mark. These were absolutely astounding conversations. We have over 1,150 people watching live. That is 673 on X. Almost 500 people watching on YouTube, and one person, welcome Twitch member, watching on Twitch. And again, we're never going to get big there because this is a podcast. But listen, Mrs. Boom and I cannot thank the community enough for supporting us with your views, with your shares, with your channel memberships, and of course super chats, which I'm going to get to right now, and then we will get everyone out of here. We have a new channel member by the name of TK Chillin. Brother, thank you so much for becoming a channel member. Mrs. Boom and I are incredibly grateful for the support. Mac22TH54 drops a very generous $5 super chat and says, can you imagine if Microsoft canceled this many games, the internet would self-destruct? And you are not wrong. Will the Insider Broke Boy Lewis drops an additional very generous $5 super chat and says, funny thing about them complaining about Flight Sim, they had the same issue with Horizon Zero Dawn, Horizon 2, or I'm sorry, no, he's not talking about Horizon. They had the same issues with Helldivers 2. They didn't appreciate the usage load, didn't anticipate the usage load, but it was good for Helldivers 2. And that's a phenomenal point, one that no one stole, because Helldivers 2 had a ton of issues, just like Flight Simulator, but one was okay, the other one was a launch disaster. And again, that is the double standard. That is the Xbox tax at play. And I think everyone did a really good job of driving that point home that, yes, the Xbox tax, as silly as it sounds, does in fact exist, not only in the games community, but worse or more so, the journalistic community. Nino Vistic, our generous friend from Hawaii, has done it again, ladies and gentlemen. He has gifted one Double Barrel Gaming membership, brother. That is very kind of you. Pretty much does it every show, and Mrs. Boom and I are incredibly grateful for that as well. Thank you, Nino Vistic, for being here. Voidlock, generous friend of the program, has been a channel member for 9 months. He goes on to say, PlayStation doesn't know how to make first-party multiplayer games. Using single-player game devs to make a multiplayer live service game won't work. And that's a great point. I think you're onto something there. But again, folks, we want to thank you again for being here. We want to thank the generosity through the channel memberships, through the super chats. Let's get everyone out here. Ham Solo, let's sell the brand of TSWS Gaming.
Yeah.
Obviously, we did learn today that you are doing 5 live shows every morning, 9:30 a.m. your time, where you kind of are just, I guess it's like a news channel where you talk about, well, the happenings of the gaming space. You do it multiple times per day. Plus, you have shows like Bullsitting and a few others. Break that down. Let people know where they can check out your content, subscribe to your YouTube channel, but more importantly, follow you on social media.
I'll put it in the chat here in just
Please
a moment.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, great. Okay, yeah, I'll put it in the chat just in a moment, in just one moment. But yeah, man, I do shows throughout the week. I'm not going to say 5 days. I do shows like throughout the week a lot. Talk about all different types of things. Sometimes I have developers join. Yesterday I had game dev Micah come through, which he works on Unreal Engine 5, specifically on the destructible end. Like he has a I forgot, like pretty much something that he can sell people to be able to add destruction into their games. I forgot what it's actually called in my head, but it's pretty dope. I had him come through yesterday, and this next coming week on Thursday, which I said I do the show Monday through Friday, but on Thursday specifically, I have indie dev Joe coming through, the one of the creators of Hypercharge of the Hypercharge
nice
toy game that was super badass. It came out last year. I bought that. I bought the premium edition of that, and I've had a blast with it. I still need to hop on and finish it. But you guys come through, check out the channel. I do shows all the time. I'm looking to hopefully within the next week get to 1,200 subscribers. Right now, I'm at like 180 or 1182 or 1186 or something like that. So if you guys can help push me over the edge, that would be phenomenal. I put the link in the chat. You guys come through, just check it out whenever you're willing to. But I have shows dang near every day, Monday, or actually every day, Monday through Friday, just not Saturdays and Sundays. So come through, check out the show, have a good time. I'm always loud, obnoxious, having a good time, having fun. Sometimes I'm playing some classic games. Like yesterday, I played right here, Street Skater.
Nice, dude. Great game,
I play
dude.
Street Skater on stream. I do all sorts of stuff over there. Just come through, check it out. Hopefully you have a good time.
Nice, brother. Can't wait to see your channel continue to grow, folks. Any growth that you can, levy this man who's a great community member and content creator. Listen, we all appreciate it. And again, it's all about growing the channels that we do through positivity, through something that a lot of people seem to forget about gaming. It's supposed to be fun, folks. You're supposed to be smiling like a child and enjoying yourself, not fighting console wars, not trying to tear down others, not trying to win a plastic war about how many consoles your box sold. And if you're getting that money, good on you, but most of you are not. But listen,
yeah, and I forgot to mention, Boom,
sure.
It is a call-in show. I forgot to mention that it is a call-in show.
Nice.
And I put the link in the description and in the chat as I do the show. And I always tell people, come on through, say what you got to say.
Yep.
Just keep it appropriate. I will boot you up out of there if you're talking crazy. I have no problem doing that, but it's usually all good. I've had General Spartan come through, Sir X-Man. Many people, I've had about 10 or 11 people come through. I've only been doing it for about a week and a half. So
nice, dude. Good
pretty
stuff.
good.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, we definitely got to support that. Call-in shows are great. Something that you should support. But Crispy Bomb, let's tell your brand, brother. Where can people follow you on social media? Get the hashtag Crispy Truth. And what else you got going on, sir?
Well, I mean, shout out to Ham. Like Ham's been out in the streets doing his thing, and I appreciate it because you know you gotta call out the hypocrites. You gotta call them out. Like, I mean, come on, man. Like me and Ham, we follow the same type of people, and sometimes those type of people just go a little crazy and think they're the greatest thing since sliced bread. Wow. I mean, sliced bread's pretty good. At Crispy Bomb on X, Crispy Bomb 28 Xbox Live. And you can find me, I don't know, I got a whole week off after tomorrow. Tomorrow is my Chiefs playing, and I have a whole week off after that. So we'll see where I show up, but I will be back here. And I appreciate y'all, love y'all, and, you know, stay a gamer. You got games or you don't. That's the way you should look at it.
Absolutely. Good stuff as always, Crispy. Thanks so much for joining us today. And again, we'll be talking in the DMs, probably get you on a couple of times next week. And of course, Thursday is going to be the big event where Xbox is having their developer direct. But there is a big show happening from Double Barrel Gaming tomorrow, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That is the annual Game of the Year podcast. A good friend of mine is in there. Jay the Destroyer is one of my longtime oldest friends, along with Jay the Retro Gamer and my real life brother, Neo Mental. The four of us are going to get together at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow. We're going to be talking about the biggest the biggest game of 2024 for us personally. We're going to be talking about our biggest disappointment, our top 10 for 2024, our most anticipated for 2025, and maybe a few other smaller topics to get in there. Again, folks, I think it's the 5th annual for the podcast. Now, we've been doing this for over 12 years. Again, we used to do it like big old nerds, just to hang out in someone's house, have dinner, have a bunch of hors d'oeuvres, have a couple of drinks, talk about gaming, maybe make a couple of trades like we did when we were kids, and have a good time. Well, we've decided to take that to the public, where we come onto the show about 90 minutes, give or take, sometimes a little bit longer, and we give you our top 10, and we talk about gaming in a positive, fun way of talking about gaming. Again, folks, that's tomorrow, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll be doing the advertising later on this afternoon. But Fuzzy Belvedere, let's sell your brand, kind sir, but not just your brand. We got to sell the wife's as well. Now, again, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. If you are not subscribed to Fuzzy Belvedere's channel, folks, you're doing it all wrong, because it's the best place for anything and everything on the racing genre. But that's not the only place that you can find Fuzzy Belvedere. He has teamed up with his wife for Fright Night with Ferocious Fee. And of course, well, it's Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It is a horror podcast where they talk about, well, horror film. Brother, sell the brand, not only of you, but the missus, and more importantly, where can they find you both on social media?
As always, thank you, Boom, for having me on. Always awesome being on here with you, as well as Crispy Bomb and Korkenstein. And love when we have Ham as a special guest. Always love your guys' takes and talking about the gaming industry. And just, this was a load of fun. Get some steam off, but yeah, PlayStation cats, seriously, ask PlayStation some questions. It's about time. You've been asking Xbox all these questions. Start asking PlayStation some questions. Hold their feet to the fire. Let's see what comes of it. But outside of that, you can always find me on social media. I'll post the links in the chat, but you can find me on pretty much everywhere except for Facebook, because I'm not changing my name in real life to Fuzzy Belvedere. But all things aside, just do a search for Fuzzy Belvedere and you'll be able to find me. The same goes for my wife. Just do a search for Ferocious Fee 78. Whether that's Blue Sky or X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it, you'll be able to find her as well, especially if you're into the horror genre, which tonight, 6 p.m. tonight, we're going to be talking about Speak No Evil. It's a movie that I enjoyed, but got frustrated towards the end. But you'll hear more about it if you haven't watched it. Definitely worth checking it out. I think it's streaming on Peacock right now, but we'll be talking about that at 6 p.m. So if you're a horror fan, whether it's in gaming or movies, please check out Fright Night with Ferocious Fee, YouTube, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tonight. I'll put the link in the chat. And then after that, you can catch me a little bit later tonight on Fun Speculations channel at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Xbox Ultimate, which I'm pretty sure we're going to go off the rails as far as this recent news in gaming. But we also going to talk about our excitement for the developer direct next week. So definitely check that out later tonight. But have a good weekend. Everybody be safe. Enjoy gaming. Have fun out there. Thanks again.
Thank you, brother. Super appreciate that. And last and no way least, Cork and Sign, brother, we got to sell the brand of Game Pass Gumbo, but also get an update to when the old school Xbox podcast may or may not be coming back. Hopefully you guys can get that off the ground, because again, multiple podcasts means we get to hear more of your genius, so to speak. Brother, sell the brand. Where can people check out your YouTube channel, watch the work that you do with your friends, and more importantly, follow you on social media?
Yeah, so thank you guys to the panel. Ham Solo, first time on here with you. Always great. Thank you. Great points and everything all around. Fuzzy, Crispy, Boom, thank you as always. Your community here, Boom, is, I've said it's probably one of the best communities I've ever been a part of. You guys are awesome. For following me on social media, I posted my Twitter link in the chat. Here is my Blue Sky, and then I also posted our Game Pass Gumbo channel. Yeah, like Boom said earlier, this is a channel where we incorporate gaming and food together in some of these, because it's both two different art forms that are always intertwined in some way or form. And you can learn a lot about the history, whether it's food and history and gaming and things like that, through food and through gaming. So yeah, we try and do that. We will have, I think we're working on a developer direct show. I know Gold Shell is working on I think a green tea pie, I want to say. It's like for something coming up, which is going to be really, really cool. Xbox Talks, we just gave away a 1 terabyte Series S, and we just gave away 40 Design Lab controllers. You can learn more about that on our subreddit. We are our Xbox. I'm a moderator there. That's why Xbox Talks was created, for that community, but also for you guys as well. Follow us both. Follow both channels if you guys can. Xbox Talks is looking to return this year. It's just trying to get everything lined up with our schedules and things like that. But you can look forward to that coming back, hopefully in the near future.
Well, we're looking forward to when you do make your triumphant return. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for us here on the Friday episode of Breakfast with Boom. And again, we want to thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with us. This was a great show. Big opinions with even bigger topics to talk about. Hopefully you enjoyed it enough to hit the like button. And of course, if you're finding the channel for the first time, Mrs. Boom and I would ask that you help us get to 16K, which we are nearly there. And of course, it'd be another huge goal to start the 2025 campaign. We did open up this year with a confirmation from YouTube that the channel has surpassed 7 million views in 7 years. That is a really, really big deal for a channel of our size. And well, we're here because of you. If you didn't watch it, share it, and then rewatch some of the episodes. We would never have gotten to the 7 million views, and that is pretty astounding. And of course, we are incredibly grateful for that. I do want to close out the show with something, folks, that's incredibly important to me. Hopefully one day it'll be important to you, and that's something that my dad taught us when we were kids. And he would say, Craig, treat others how you want to be treated. And also, it doesn't cost anything to be nice. You live by those rules, son. I can guarantee you're going to have an awesome day. So take care, everyone. And we'll see you next week on the newest episode of Breakfast with Boom.